position among communist dictators after World War II is rooted in his fierce independence and defiant spirit. He begins his career as a guerrilla fighter against the hated Japanese.
Kim wasn't just a Soviet stooge like some of the people that Stalin was putting into power in Eastern Europe. He was a genuine nationalist that the Koreans could respect as someone who really spent his whole life up to that point fighting the Japanese. And he did seem to have a certain charisma.
The legends of his daring do, of course, were very much used, and the cult of personality immediately began to be put in place and has continued to this day.
The systematic development of Kim's cult of personality depends primarily on a ceaseless campaign of propaganda.
It seems as if Kim Il-sung was the sole independence fighter against the Japanese. That Kim Il-sung is a military genius. That's how children are taught.
We
were told that he crossed the river on a bridge of leaves, and that he threw pine cones, and they turned into grenades. We heard this over and over, and we really believed that. So, naturally, we idolized him.
The idolization of Kim Il-sung goes beyond the usual barrage of half-truths and hyperbole. Kim enhances his godlike image by exploiting long-held cultural traditions rooted in Confucianism.
He developed an ideology called the Juche, that is self-reliance, which is based on Confucian civilization. It's Confucian civilization in the sense that you have the family system, and the state is an extended version of the family, and therefore the leader is a father. And North Koreans think that way about their leadership. The leadership they support because they're the parents, and they don't choose their parents. They're simply there. That's what underlies the Juche ideology.
Juche uses the kind of organic metaphor of the whole society, the state as a single body, with the head being the leadership and the people being the main body of the society, and that you can't have one without the other. People have to move as one entity.
Unlike Marxist-Leninist ideology, this is more spiritual determinism-based doctrine, which is Confucianism. When you have the will, you can move the mountains.
On June 25, 1950, Kim Il-sung launches a massive invasion of South Korea.
In Northeast Asia, the latest hotspot in the Cold War.
Almost all analysts in the United States thought that it was Joseph Stalin who told Kim Il-sung to go conquer South Korea.
Russian-controlled North Koreans, with typical red disregard for international decency, invading their fellow countrymen to the south.
That was the official script. But we know today that it was the other way around. It was Kim Il-sung who asked Stalin.
Stalin didn't like this idea at first because he didn't want to provoke the Americans. He didn't want to trigger World War III over Korea, which was not that important to him compared to Europe. Eventually, Kim convinced Stalin that they could get away with this.
Kim predicts that the conquest of South Korea will take only 30 days. The war drags on for more than 3 years.
The tragedy is still vivid in my mind. I was 15 at the time. It was frightening. All houses burned down. Rubble, block after block. Burning. Starvation. Everybody living in sheds. When I think of those days, I shrivel. I tremble.
When the ceasefire is finally declared in 1953, North Korea has gained nothing. The original border at the 38th parallel is restored. The country is still split in two. Nearly 400,000 South Koreans have died, 37,000 Americans. North Korea and its ally China have lost 1,400,000. The Soviet Union has suffered virtually no casualties.
Kim was clearly disappointed at the low level of real military backing that he got from Stalin, and that created a level of mistrust that he never completely overcame.
This sense of mistrust and betrayal reinforces Kim Il-sung's philosophy of self-reliance at all costs. It will guide his actions and those of his son and successor Kim Jong-il for years to come. Beneath the smiles of Kim Il-sung and the leader of Communist China, Mao Zedong, by the 1960s, tensions are brewing.
The Chinese wage what they call the Great Cultural Revolution in China, and they come to Korea, and they tell Kim Il-sung that you are a bad communist, you look too fat, and you have so many palaces in the different resort areas, and how can a very frugal communist act in that fashion? Kim Il-sung don't stand for this and kick them out, and recalls the ambassador from China and tell Chinese ambassador to go home. Nobody could tell North Korea what to do.
This is the environment in which Kim Il-sung's oldest son, Kim Jong-il, begins his rise to power. His rapid ascension through the ranks culminates in 1980. Kim Il-sung, known to all as Great Leader, officially designates Kim Jong-il as successor. He is now to be known as Dear Leader.
Suddenly this myth appears that Kim Jong-il was born on sacred Mount Paektu, a mythical place where the Korean people supposedly originated in the far distant past, and that at the time of his birth, in the middle of February, flowers bloomed, there was a double rainbow in the sky, and the whole world knew that a great new leader had been born.
In reality, Kim Jong-il is born in a Russian military camp in the Soviet Union on February 16, 1942. At the end of World War II, he moves with his family to Pyongyang, the new capital of North Korea. Little is known about Kim Jong-il's early life. His first job, at age 22, is in the propaganda section of the party.
He made propaganda films, he made musicals, he staged plays. So he's naturally get involved with the actresses. He's been called a playboy, and he likes the women, and he likes to drink, and all the what artists enjoy that he really enjoys.
He particularly likes certain genres of films, such as horror films, including the Friday the 13th series, Elizabeth Taylor films, and westerns.
At some stage, he decided that the actresses and actors in North Korea were not very good. And so he said, I would like to have Miss Chae, who is one of the more noted actresses in South Korea, here to make movies. And so they kidnapped her.
In 1978, Chae Yun-hee is kidnapped by North Korean agents. When she arrives in North Korea, she is greeted by the Dear Leader himself.
There was a voice. Welcome to North Korea. I am Kim Jong-il. I felt I was now to be killed. I felt as if all my blood fell down to my feet.
6 months later, Miss Chae's husband, the renowned film director Shin Sang-ok, is also kidnapped. Over the next 3 years, they are forced to make films for Kim Jong-il, including a North Korean version of Godzilla.
We had money and all kinds of conveniences. but we didn't have freedom. I was 60 then. I couldn't die there.
Shin and Che eventually escape. But the practice of kidnapping becomes an integral part of Kim's strategy for destabilizing his enemies. Between 1977 and 1983, several Japanese citizens vanish without a trace.
The North Koreans said we needed Japanese role models so that we could learn from them how to behave like Japanese and how to sound like Japanese when we spoke.
The purpose is for North Korean agents to pose as Japanese, thus providing cover and deniability while engaging in acts of sabotage against South Korea. By the mid-1980s, South Korea is the model of a modern capitalist nation. Its booming economy is a constant source of resentment to Kim, whose own economy is on the brink of disaster. Adding insult to injury, Seoul is internationally recognized as a world-class city when it is designated as host of the 1988 Olympics. Determined to intimidate participants and disrupt the Games, North Korea turns to its strategy of abduction and sabotage to perpetrate an act of terrorism, allegedly at the direction of Kim Jong-il.
Just disappeared.
In 1987,